Hey everyone, my name's Chris. Thank you so much for joining me for this basic setup video where I'm going to run through all the first steps you need to set up in your EcoSend account. This will involve adding your email domain to white label your emails, uploading your contacts from a CSV file, uploading a form to your website, and sending out your first newsletter. So let's jump in. So starting from ecosend.io, I'm going to click Start My Free Trial and enter the details here. Okay, so details are filled in. Let's jump in and create our account. Now in the first screen here, we're going to be prompted to add our email domain. This is in order to send white labeled emails from EcoSend, which will be automatically verified with SPF and DKIM records. So let's enter, we just need the second part of the domain, not the first part. So if your email is agent@company.co.uk, we just need the company.co.uk part here. So let's type that in. Perfect. Now in the next step, we'll have instructions for adding the DNS, adding the CNAME record to our DNS provider. We don't need to do this now, we can do this later on. So I will run through this in full detail in a second. So let's just pop to do this later. We can add in our sender details. This is adding that agent name at company.co.uk to make sure it is all nicely branded when we log in. So let's continue through. Now I'll skip this stage for the purposes of the demonstration, but you can obviously select your EcoSend plan after your 7-day trial at this stage. Great, so we've now created our trial platform. As you can see, we've already planted one tree in the EcoSend forest for setting up this trial. Now, next step, let's go through and add that email domain. So heading down to current project, going to head to domains, and we can see we had the record we've entered earlier currently showing as unverified. So we'll click options, view details, and EcoSend has helpfully picked up that I'm using a GoDaddy domain. So I have full instructions for how to add the CNAME record in GoDaddy, which I can click through here, or just head down and copy the details directly. So let's grab the record name as the first one and head into my GoDaddy site. So here in GoDaddy, we need to head to the domain settings. So we have the domain section here, followed by manage DNS. And this is where we're going to input the details from EcoSend in order to recognize our email and white label all email communications sent from the platform. So into DNS records and click add new record. Now the process for this will always vary across different DNS providers, but it's largely the same. So we want to make sure we select CNAME, add the record name here, and then jump back into EcoSend and grab the value field here, copy that to the clipboard and input that under value. So let's send through that and save. And that has now created the CNAME record in GoDaddy. And if we hop back to EcoSend, we can then refresh. And this can take a little bit of time depending on the email platform. Hopefully in a few minutes that will then show as verified, allowing us to proceed to the next step, which will be to request verification for our platform from EcoSend after we add in our privacy domain. So let's just give that a minute and then I'll refresh the platform. Great, and there we have it. That domain has now come through successfully as verified in EcoSend, as you can see from the sign here. So the next stage is to head to our general settings and input our details under business address and privacy policy. This is to ensure your email domain complies with anti-spam regulations. Let me just fill that in quickly now. Great, so I've added in my business address, which will appear in all of my email footers in EcoSend from the EcoSend footer, and added my privacy policy. I'm now in a position to head back to domains and click request review, which will send through a request to the EcoSend team who will review the platform, make sure your privacy policy has been added, make sure your domain is all set up for verification, and will reach out to you once that has been requested. So let's just jump to do that and then we can crack on with next steps. Okay, so that review has now been requested and I'm now wearing glasses to look more intelligent, and it's refreshed the platform, and there we go. We can now see the platform is now ready to send out our first email campaigns, all verified with our domain. So everything will come out white label branded as chris@ecosendtrialdemonstration.co.uk. But first we need to add some contacts to send the messaging to. So heading to contacts, I've got 0 contacts at the moment, and I want to import them from a CSV file, which I've exported from my existing email campaign platform. So here is the CSV file. Now, a few things to look through. It may look a little bit scary to start with, but it's really quite simple. Every column here we want to import, which will then show as a filter within EcoSend smart groups, and that will allow us to filter our users when they come through. So we could filter, for example, by company position, status, member, whether they are members or not. We've got a mixture here of members and non-members, as well as whether they have unsubscribed previously from our communications. Now, there's an option here to simply not upload any users who have unsubscribed, which is usually what we'd recommend, but you can also import unsubscribed users, just ensuring that that matches on to the unsubscribed status within EcoSend. Please note as well, if you are importing from MailChimp, there's a different process for this. Please click the video linked in order to head through the MailChimp integration process. But for my CSV file here, I've got everything I need for my export. So let's just make sure I name this as data export and download that as a CSV file. Now, jumping back to EcoSend, let's simply hit import contacts and add our CSV file here. So we've got data export. Now here is the key stage to make sure all the columns line up. So these are the columns from the spreadsheet up on the top titles here, and making sure where relevant they line up with any existing properties within EcoSend. So the classic examples being name, ensuring this maps onto the existing property of name, email onto email. We can also include some of our default properties like company name as company name, company industry as company industry, and position as position, in lastly status as status. For something like member, this is a custom property. This is a custom property from our own data. So we want to make sure that added as a new property, new custom property, property name, member. So this will allow us to create a new custom property field within EcoSend of member, which will be ascribed false or true according to the relevant data we've brought in from the CSV. So we can select to send perhaps in one newsletter to our members and one newsletter to our non-members. And lastly, just moving my head, we've also got our unsubscribe column here. So for any users who've come through with unsubscribe as true, we want to make sure that is mapped on to our unsubscribe from emails property here. So that is all now looking good. So we can click start data import and confirm we have consent from these users to hold and send email communication, and click confirm. Now, any users imported into EcoSend without any without any properties on unsubscribed to dictate otherwise, will automatically be added as subscribed. So we'll be able to send communications to any users who do not match the unsubscribed property we uploaded. So let's give that a minute to populate and then we'll jump back in. Okay, amazing. We can see that data is now starting to populate through, bringing through our contacts and mapping the data on where relevant. For example, the status column, which we populated earlier. You can also see by default, these users have been added with the subscribe status of true, except for the list of contacts we added for unsubscribed property to be brought in. So these are users whose subscription preferences will be reflected now that they've been added into the platform. So one thing we might like to do at this stage is build out a basic smart group to filter between members and non-members. So we add the filter and search for member. We can see the title of that column has pulled through, and we can now set between yes and no to define between our non-member group and our member group. So let's save this as our member group here. And we can very simply flick the status to non-member and save as a separate group as non-member. And that list is now populating in the groups side of our smart groups. So we've added our contacts. Next step, let's get a form onto our website. So I want to build a form in order to capture new users for my newsletter list. So we'll head into create form. We've got two options in EcoSend. We can have an embedded form or a pop-up form. For the purposes of this demonstration, let's just jump through and create a simple embedded form. So I want to have a user's email address as a required field. I also want to add CAPTCHA, very important to help make sure we don't get any spam signups coming through. and I'll also add an email opt-in, which I will mark as required. So users will have to tick this box to confirm they wish to receive emails from me by subscribing from this link. So sign up. Now let's style the form to make it a little bit more in keeping with my website. So heading over to my website now. Let's just grab some of the color schemes so it's a little bit more in keeping. So we'll head through and we will put that as the button there. And there's a success version as well. And we can just, for the demonstration here, we will disable double opt-in and click down through to create form. So very simple. That has created the code for us. So I can now head into my site and simply copy and paste that into my Squarespace website. So jumping into Squarespace now, let's go through and add in my form. Okay, so here in my Squarespace website, let me just scroll down to the area where I want to offer users the opportunity to sign up to my newsletter. So let's use this section here. I'm going to head to add block, and I'll use the code block here. So Squarespace makes it nice and simple. Let's just drag this into the right area, click edit, and all I need to do is paste in the code for my form. Now let's just make sure, this will look a little bit funky in the preview safe mode, but let's just add that out. And once I click save, that should then nicely fit into the website and display properly. So let's click save and have a look at how that looks. Okay, there we go. So from the preview mode of my website, we can now see I've got my form on the website. So users can add in their email address. If I could spell, EcoSend, there we go. You see, as we've already dictated, they cannot sign up without checking the box first. So let's click that through. And users can now successfully put in their details, which we'll start seeing come through into both the form submitted here. As we can see, we've already had that one submission come through. And we'll also create a smart group within form newsletter, and we'll start pulling through that data there. So that's a really nice setup actually to send an automated message out, which we won't cover within this video. We have plenty of videos on this in our support center, in the EcoSend support center on YouTube. A really nice use case to send an automated email to anyone who submits a form and send them a welcome message. But for now, we will proceed to the final step of this basic setup, which is to send out our first newsletter. So we've enabled our white labeled email domain, we've uploaded our contacts, we've added a form. So the last part is to send out our first broadcast and send out our first newsletter. Now, included within EcoSend subscriptions is the free migration of one email template. So we will handle that for you. If you send through the hosted online version of your basic newsletter template, our team will help you get that set up and add that into the platform for you. So that's what I'm going to do in this example here and get my nice preset template added in to send out my first email. Okay, so with a big thank you to the EcoSend design team, we now have our newsletter template added into the platform for us, which going forward, we can also save in individual blocks. So for example, if we wanted to save this particular header block as a block to recreate and use elsewhere in the platform for broadcast or automated messages or sequences, simply hit save, and we'll add this as header block. Meaning we can then, whenever we want to, head to the blocks section here, and we could then add this in as a separate block within a different campaign. But that's giving me a basic template. I could jump in, don't have to touch code at any point, update the content, update the images, make sure it all looks good on the mobile version as well, and get ready to send this out to the client base. Let's just add a quick subject line, say, hey, first name. Welcome to my first newsletter. Now we'll hit save and continue. I've created my message. Who should receive this broadcast? So for this broadcast, I want to send it just to my members. So as we already have that smart group, I don't have to build out the filters, although I could here simply by going to member is set. But for this demonstration, we'll hit to all contacts and select member group. As you can see on the right hand side, that's now updated to confirm exactly who the email will be sent to, which we could check through in contacts if we wanted to. I'm confident I've got my members, filter is yes. I now just need to set when it should send. Now I know a good time to reach out to my client base is on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. That's exactly when I'll schedule this message to go out. Actually, to be a little bit smarter, let's do it at 10:15 to make sure we catch it when their inboxes are a little less busy. Okay, so that is everything I then need to send out my first newsletter. So I can head back in, head to schedule, and set this out to send at a designated time to send out to my members only. So there you go. Thank you very much for joining me for this whistle stop through our basic setup, where in our first session, we have successfully verified our email domain, uploaded our contacts, added a form to our website, and scheduled to send out our first newsletter. Thank you very much, and I hope you found this training session helpful.